This week tonight on Look at Business. Thank you very much for tuning in. And today we are joined by the CEO, Black Bow Consult, Arnold Midunga. Fine. Let's get into the conversation tonight. Now, after weeks of battle with the Chinese investors, a fight that ended with the Anti-Counterfeit Goods Agency confiscating goods worth 50 million shillings from China Square premises along Thika Road. Essentially ended with the agency returning the goods back to the China Square. Arnold, how are you doing, sir?
Very well, very well. Thank you for having me here.
Anytime, man. Let's weigh in on that. What questions should we be asking around the China Square wrangles?
I think we had too much emotions surrounding China Square. That proper logic wasn't applied. We had a situation whereby initially there was a complaints to do with the pricing of items which are being sold at China Square. Next, there were those accusations of infringement on intellectual property and counterfeit issues to do with what was being traded at China Square. And then most of these things sort of went under the water when the Anti-Counterfeit Authority came out with a statement to clarify that there were no issues to do with the counterfeit issues. And then recently I've just seen a statement that the premises for China Square will be reopened for business. Of course, over the past 3 weeks, we've had a lot of issues and queries concerning China Square. I think what we should be asking ourselves is, what policies do we have in place when dealing with international investors vis-a-vis what is being traded as far as the manufacturing industry is concerned? I think once we iron out such issues, we'll stop having confused situations as we had with China Square. Remember, this, to some extent, triggered a diplomatic discussion between Kenya and China. And it looks like things have been resolved, and probably we need to put more logic as far as discussing of international trade is concerned.
Can I ask you about this before we move on to the next one? But now, Arnold, we have the launch of the Kenya Square by Moses Kuria. Look at that one, Kenya Square versus China Square. In fact, it was quite clear that this one is only for hustlers. Arnold, it's going to be a lack of creativity, isn't it, even into the launch of Kenya Square?
Yeah, it looks more reactive than proactive, eh?
Yeah.
And that's why if you look keenly into it, there's too much emotion over logic. So I think we need a proper analysis of international local trade relations vis-a-vis what can be gained in terms of purchase, in terms of basic trade, in terms of corporate tax, in terms of bilateral relations. So it looks more of a reactive rather than a proactive move by the government, if you ask me.
Let's move on to the next one. By the way, it's big, Arnold. KRA suspended payment of tax reliefs. In fact, we had two announcements, Arnold, last week. KRA board comes in and says, we together with the National Treasury have said no more tax reliefs in the country. KRA comes back later and says, guys, you see, that did not mean this. It means that, well, we are going to think much more into this particular announcement that we made. Let's first start with this. Who should be making that kind of announcement? Don't we have a certain Miss Simiu, who's now the acting commissioner for KRA?
Yeah, in my view, I think it's the commissioner who should be making such statements as opposed to the chairperson.
Yes.
Later on, we also got information that apparently it was due to audits which were ongoing with KRA and not necessarily like a final conclusion or a final judgment on the same. So it looks like with KRA, I think you need to look at the bigger picture. You realize that the president has given them a 3 trillion shilling target.
Yeah.
So they're trying to squeeze as much as possible from the market, but in some instances, they seem to be overstepping their mandate as far as legal issues are concerned. So I think there was, again, a quick move and then a revaluation of the same. That's why some formal feedback had to be given in that manner.
Let's move on to the next one. This is big on exactly what we're going to look at. You see, Arnold, you and I kept on speaking about how we were supposed to move from an absolute figure when it came to the debt ceiling in this country. Guess what, Arnold? They did it, but now they pegged it at 55% of GDP, meaning when you go in terms of absolute figures, whatever it is they're trying to run away from, it is now 17 trillion. That's where we are. How do you read into this announcement, Arnold?
Two things. I think the number one, you have to look at some of the proposals which have been put forward by the IMF, and it looks like based on some of the policies, some of the proposals that they've placed forward for us as a country to access some credit facilities, some moves need to be made. If we go back to what the IMF is proposing, we're already above limit. So it looks like what follows next, probably austerity. Let's wait and see on that. But it's been a swinging pendulum on that discussion, and I think it's going to be quite interesting in the near future, in the next few weeks, because again, it's a proposal which is up to debate in Parliament. So let's see what happens on that front.
As a thing, is Ruto talking tough in terms of borrowing less and spending less? If you go by what we've seen again come from his office in terms of spending over 7 billion in 7 months.
It's about
you gotta say it. I mean, if he's spending more, he is.
Wine. Situation of preaching water and drinking wine, but it's a very tricky juggling act, considering what we want to achieve economically versus what the IMF is demanding. Yes. It's a very tricky juggling act.
Here's the thing, Arnold, I'm going to end like this. We only have 60 seconds to clear this. We're calling it Kuria-nomics. He's saying a chance that even we structure where we get our oil from, the dollar, the Kenya shilling standing versus the dollar would go back to 85 shilling. Is it a case of yes, Piwanomics, or just a case of Kuria-nomics?
That's Kuria-nomics. The numbers he's talking about are quite ambitious. Honestly speaking, they're quite ambitious. You're looking at shifts which have happened in the past 5 years. You can't reverse that in a year. Unless you have a massive miracle. Probably you have, in the event, probably you have something very valuable discovered in the country which will attract a lot of foreign capital injection. I don't see it happening. It doesn't sound realistic unless you're also pegging that on the borrowings which are supposed to be coming, disbursements which are supposed to be coming. But then again, that can't move the exchange rate to the numbers he's talking about.
I will tell you that. I like the way you're saying, unless you're asking for a miracle.
Economic shift for that to happen.
Yes. I mean, we've been praying so much in this government, maybe a miracle is going to come. So we go back to 85 shillings to the dollar. Anyway, Arnold, thank you very much for joining us on This Week Tonight right here on Look at Business. Up next is Street Business.